it's Bob from Biking Friday. This is day 2 of my Midwest tour of 2021. This day had me leaving out of Richmond, Illinois, which is just shy of the Wisconsin border, ending up in West Allis, which is at the west end of the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. And it was 47 and just a little over 47 and a half miles. So here's my bike, ready to go the next day. And although the first day, day 1, was 55 miles, and it was hot and I was tired at the end of the day, it didn't really wipe me out because I was ready to go. Day 2, I was set to do it all over again.
All right, entered into Wisconsin, about half a mile back or so. My wife is texting me. And supposed to be a hot one again, more humid. So we'll see how that goes. So far though, it's nice.
So it was just a short distance after leaving the hotel, crossed over into Wisconsin. And initially I was following country, country roads in southern Wisconsin. It was just really pretty. Traffic was light. It was early Sunday morning, and it was actually a rather enjoyable ride. And here you can see just some of the photos, some of the sights I saw. A lot of old barns on the farms, and the dogs there in the lower right-hand part of your screen. Those are Akitas. I have Akitas, so I took a photo of them and came across several dogs. It was some of the highlights of my trip were getting to engage with people's dogs at the various coffee shops and places where I stopped. But didn't have any issues with any dogs chasing me. All the dogs were either behind a fence or some type of barrier or chained up like these guys here. And although the two in the picture here, they were definitely vocalizing my riding past, they weren't aggressive in any way. Once I made it up into Twin Lakes, Wisconsin, which was just not far up the road from where I started, that's where I stopped for a coffee.
Whew. Little hill right here outside Twin Lakes, Wisconsin. That ain't kidding. Whew.
And boy, this sign, it wasn't kidding. That riding out of Twin Lakes, there was a hill riding right out of town, and it was a butt kicker. It was really steep. It wasn't a long, sustained hill. It wasn't a lot of elevation, but it was definitely steep. And again, dragging the weight that I was, it was a challenge, but it was a short challenge, and it was just part of my day 2. So it wasn't until just a few miles outside of Burlington, Wisconsin, where I actually left the rural country farm roads and was on an actual highway. But considering it was Sunday morning, traffic was very light and the shoulder was ample, and I had no issues whatsoever, no close calls, no white knuckles. It, it was an easy ride. And here entering into Burlington, apparently the home of Tony Romo, for Tony Romo fans.
Just passed through Burlington, Wisconsin, off the highways, at least for a while. Began this path.
And after passing through Burlington, I was off the road. Day two, just like day one, was primarily on bike paths, and it was off the roadway. So the initial part of the day on day two, I was on farm roads and on one highway. But once I got into Burlington, it was really mostly bike paths for the rest of the day. And most of the bike paths were crushed limestone. There were short sections of paved, but most of it was crushed stone, limestone apparently. And as it was a stretch coming out of Waterford, where the stones were a little bit bigger, they weren't as crushed as what you're seeing here. And that was the only part of the entire trip that was, and I wouldn't even say it was all that bad, but it's probably the worst of it. One of the forest preserves I passed through as I made my way to Waterford. There's a VFW I passed, and one of the coffee shops. Another coffee shop that where I stopped and had lunch. Some of the friends I made while having lunch. This one here got a little fresh. And here's the stones I was talking about after I left Waterford. Those stones were, again, they were just a little bit bigger than the other stones on the other paths here. And again, this is probably the worst part of the entire trip, but all in all, it wasn't bad, and I was not on the road. And as I started to get into the Milwaukee metro area, you can see I got to where I was on the road. The pictures on the right were a bike path that I was on as part of this trip. I believe it was the Franklin Hike and Bike Trail. So I wasn't on road for all of that, but eventually the highway, I had a stretch of highway or roadway that I did have to navigate. But again, luckily being that it was a Sunday, traffic was not too bad. And eventually the roadway gave way to where the shoulder was very, very wide, and it was very easy to ride on. and eventually made my way winding through some slower roadways. Made it up to the Oak Leaf Trail, which was the final trail that got me to where my hotel was in West Allis. And you can see here the photos. The photo on the right is some turkey that I noticed as I was riding through, and this was very urban. I mean, this was very much in the urban area. It looks like it's not, but this was well within the urban area outside Milwaukee. And then I eventually made it to my hotel, and fortunately I had left early. Story of my life, I leave earlier than I intend, and because of that I was able to make it up to my hotel. The picture there on the left is looking out from the drive-up area of the hotel, and you can see the weather that was blowing in, and I made it there before the weather got bad. And then my day 2 was complete. You can see there, if you're in the West Allis area, Oscar's Frozen Custard, top notch, 2 thumbs up. So day 2, 47.51, 47.5 miles for the day. That would, I think that might be close to, well, it was about the average length of the longer days was in that ballpark. Elevation gain that day, 793 feet. Average speed was 10.1. And although the elevation gain on day 2 is, my computer says it is less, but boy, it sure felt like more. Not that I did a lot of climbing, but especially in the early part of the day, it felt like I was doing a lot more climbing than I did the day before. High temp that day, it was still a pretty respectable 85 degrees. It was warm. The humidity was a little bit higher, but not too bad. Low temp was 66. So again, I had expected cooler temperatures, being it was mid-September up in northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. But all in all, it ended well, and I was not overly wiped out.